Hello, everyone. It is 4:05. We're going to officially get started. And as we have done historically, I want to start with a roll call of sorts. I am the recovery officer here assigned to the Sto-Rox School District. I'm Nancy Rabel. With me in the same room here, we are in the space of the district office. I have Sto-Rox School District Superintendent, Mrs. Sonia Coleman. Board members, we do not have anyone in attendance with us this evening. However, I will be giving a similar presentation of the amended Financial Recovery Plan 2025 tomorrow night in the public board meeting. So hopefully they'll be able to attend that. Our representative from the principal ranks here at Sto-Rox, that's Ms. Heather Johnston. Business office official in bold, Mr. Scott Reed. He is a brand new hire, so welcome, Scott. Representing the Allegheny Intermediate Unit, we have Dr. Jill Jacoby and Ms. Leanna Lawson. Charter School Representative, Dr. Melissa Garvin. I do not see her on with us so far. We know it's a busy time, however. Special Education Advocate, Ms. Jessica Taylor. She is here and just shot it out there with a little wave. I don't believe Dr. Johns is able to join us tonight. She is an appointee who represents another school district nearby. Two residents, Ms. Tina Nagel, an additional to be determined. I don't believe we have representatives in that capacity this evening. We do have our Sto-Rox School District teacher appointee, Ms. Maria Kotek, with us. And then from our PDE assigned technical support team, we have Stephen Ramirez and Hannah Friedrich, who represent PFM. We also have with us Chris Selmer. He represents Devapar, which is a subcontractor of PFM. And then representing Wessel and Company Business Office Support, we have Michael Lamb. Is there anybody that I missed? Okay, we have a pretty hearty agenda, so I'm going to start going through kind of quickly some of these points, but I want to save time so that we can spend on the amended financial recovery plan. Did everybody receive a copy of that along with this agenda? Shaking your heads. Okay, thank you for confirming. All right, so the new district administrative team, this is such an exciting time at the district. I continually am saying that, and I mean it with all sincerity. There are some new dynamic leaders here who really have stepped up quickly. I don't even think they've transitioned in terms of taking a week or two to process. They are up and running very, very quickly. That includes the superintendent. Also, the business manager, as I referenced, Scott Reed, his hire will be ratified tomorrow night. And the district has extended the PIMS coordinator role here. That was a contracted service provider. Her name is Melinda Stewart, and she is working in an extended capacity as support for HR. Martha has really been taking the lead on that as the district has transitioned away from the JMA business office model, and Melinda's role has been extended to support Martha. I also want to just kind of circle back with the SASI opportunity. We are still hopeful that somebody from this particular initiative that is funded initially federally and it's channeled funded through the state. We believe because of the unresolved with the Harrisburg budget that's probably the reason for the delay. But we are anxious here at the district to host a visit by the Penn State engineering team to have them take a look specifically at the junior senior high school, to collaborate with the district team about moving and consolidating district offices for the benefit of the community and also for the benefit of efficiency and productivity. Having everyone in a similar space will absolutely give the opportunity for increased collaboration. Specific to a second resident appointee, we know that one of the original members had asked to forgo his position. He has some other things going on personally, needs to focus on those. And the IU is helping us to vet. We did receive a report this morning from Dr. Jill Jacoby. She's the lead on that. So far, no one has applied for that position. Certainly, we will try to promote that a little bit more and hopefully fill that second. Any remarks for IU members on that? Okay, so let's jump into the financial recovery plan. I want to just go over the timeline first. Anything just as a reminder that is kind of gray just means that that's an adjustment that I made after Martha posted the agenda for me publicly. In terms of sunshine, I want to make sure that I'm compliant and I draw attention to those minor changes. There's nothing of substance that has changed. So we start with January 2025, there's ongoing data collection from partners at PFM. We also started sharing the themes out about, what were the current needs of the district? What will we try to target? And also acknowledge things that are going really, really well. The district has made progress. We want to make sure we highlight that, reference that as well. Started with you all as the advisory committee, sharing that information with you in a formal meeting, and then giving the opportunity through a Google Doc for you to respond and provide additional feedback. And several of you did. I appreciate that. We also shared the themes with the Board of School Directors June 26th. And then really I started working with PFM and various representatives from the Department of Education to dig into actual language. And there were multiple iterations. Stephen, Hannah, how many iterations do you think we had?
I can confirm that there were dozens.
It got confusing, I have to tell you, at some points, because we're doing all this electronically, and then somebody catches something like, I thought we already fixed that. So I appreciate the help that Stephen and Hannah have extended, and also want to thank Michael Lamb, because the things that he has been doing here are so key to this district's stability, increased stability and success. A lot of sense of optimism and hope right now with this new dynamic team, looking at some of the data, and some of it looks really good, quantifying what we need to do differently. As long as we can describe it, define it, we know that we can tackle it. So the edit started August 1, and they actually went through Monday the 25th. We had an early morning meeting after some weekend work. The amended language, then those things were shared when the staff came back. Not necessarily the specific language, but just more of the generic themes that we hope to tackle. Hi there, Melissa.
Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm late. Yeah.
That's okay. We welcome you. And then we were able to initiate the 30-day public review. So that is out. We had Lydia from the IU, the consultant here who helps with PR and marketing. She did an email blast, and I saw something through social media, the website, and so forth. This is a public meeting. We have the door open here. Anybody can come in to join us to hear the highlights that we're going to talk about tonight. Same thing will happen tomorrow at the beginning of the board meeting. I'll give the same presentation. And then Sonia is hosting a stakeholder event September 16th, and she's graciously allowed me to piggyback on that and to join in, and that will be a third attempt in person to share the content. Any questions about that calendar? We're going to hope that we, on the next page, there's a reference to September 25th. That will be the end of the 30-day review period. And hopefully the board will adopt it. We'll move forward and do what we need to do. Any questions about the timeline? Okay, before we jump into the amended financial recovery plan, let me just go off script a little bit. Sonia, would you kindly just give an update about back to school? Heather, feel free to chime in, and Maria as well. You guys are here, you're in the trenches. You've seen things more directly than I have.
Hey, I think, I don't have anything to compare it to in terms of last year, but I do know this year we did have some positive press here on campus the first day of school back. Just the feeling that was in the air in terms of not just our students, but our parents coming in, even at the high school, at the secondary level, the primary, the upper, just the excitement with back to school. It was for me, it felt like a different kind of energy from what I felt when I visited at the end of the school year. The air was very heavy. And so the beginning of the year, I can say it was very different. Sometimes you don't know what to expect the first day of school, but this was very different. Even with our professional development, we had 4 days of it with teachers and staff. And while they were tired, I don't get the feeling, or the feedback that I got was very, very positive from both leaders and teachers alike in terms of the direction that we're going. And I could go on, but I won't. I will add that I rolled out our priorities for the year and set the tone for what everyone should expect, as well as our instructional framework, which was something that was missing, that we're going to work on this year together through professional learning, with the expectation that moving into the upcoming year, we're putting things in place with fidelity because we've had a year of training and support under our belt.
Thank you for that. Heather?
I can only speak for the upper, but I thought it was a great start so far. Kids were excited. I was excited to see yesterday we had 90% attendance, which we have not had in a long time. So that was amazing for that first week of school. Not that we haven't seen 90%, but for that first week, we usually have the ones that straggle in and don't come to after Labor Day. So that was exciting to see. We were at like 88% today. So I was very pleased that, kids coming, kids getting here, before Labor Day. That first day, I have to commend Ed for getting all of the people up here. The kids were excited coming into the music and all of the guests cheering them into the building.
Very good. Thank you. Maria?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So the high school, I know last year there was some issues with dress code, but it seems like it's picking up. Most of the children are following the dress code, which is fabulous. It's rough at the beginning of the year for everyone, hard to get back in the routine, but I think everybody is on the right track, and it's hopefully a great and exciting year.
Thank you, everyone. And please let me also thank Chris Selmer. I kind of flew by his role and what he's been doing. Certainly predates me. He has been involved in providing technical support for a lot of the reports, grant applications, reporting, and so forth. So thank you very much, Chris, for your role. Okay, so I want to just kind of talk about, what I envision for this school year in terms of our actual committee here. I don't want to do all the talking, and certainly that doesn't make sense. I don't have all the answers. I think we have to have authentic speakers who are boots on the ground here in the district, present to us, and I mean informally. I don't want to create some type of hardship or a massive project, but just to talk from the heart, give us some important updates, some meaningful information that we can process and think about it. And certainly in light of financial recovery, what represents whatever they're presenting, what represents a success, progress, what represents a challenge. Maybe we need to rethink a strategy and so forth. So tentatively, I just kind of scripted something. Sonia has a running operations meeting that includes the directors, and I'm going to be asking them to kind of pencil these times in. Of course, it'll be the last Wednesday of the month in most cases. I purposely skipped December. We know that's a busy month and that's the holiday break, but I think first of all, you need to hear directly from Sonia. She's hinted at some of the things that she's done, but I'd like her to expand on that. And I'm sure you are going to be absolutely amazed and feel really good about what she's going to present to you. Tony also talking about curriculum and instruction. Brittany talking about the identification process for students, MDE process, and so forth. Scott Reed, I want to give him a little bit of time to settle in since he's the newest. Maybe he will, give a recap from the fiscal year starting out, and then maybe a hint at what next year's budget is going to look like. Mike from security, I think that one will be interesting, and I would expect him to talk about the new dashboards that we hope to use that will have the student disciplinary infractions and have them tiered, so we'll know, are we making gains? Was a certain month a tough month? And then moving forward, we'll have those, so we'll be able to compare, let's say, September of this year with September of next year, again, as a measure or indicator of how we are doing. And then the building principals, similar to what we did last spring, have each of them take a turn, talk about their year, successes, things that they hope to accomplish next year, things that they are looking at. And for our advisory committee, you're appointed because of your role. We need your expertise. We need your guidance. And I appreciate so much how several of you last spring talked to the principals directly during our meeting and said, have you thought about this? And I think of Leanna cautioning about, be careful your terminology. If you're saying alt ed, is it AEDY? If you are, then there's different guidelines and so forth. So that's what we look forward to. And then Sonia, I'd like her to wrap up, her first year, how was it? And then in July, most likely, I'll give a recap specific to financial recovery. Any questions or recommendations about that tentative calendar? Okay, we're going to jump into the financial recovery amendment. I'm really excited. I say amendment, it should be amended financial recovery plan, excuse me. So again, just reiterating the plan, we're under 30-day public review. These will be in-person engagements. We'll facilitate a very similar presentation. Okay, this is a slide that is nothing new or different to this committee. We've talked about this before. Looking at the timeline, it was July 2021. The Secretary of Education at the time, Noe Ortega, notified the district superintendent of the assignment to moderate financial recovery. And this is specific language that was listed in there. Just underline some things, mostly financial, but for your eye, just to take a look at. You know, certainly number 2, less than 0. That's something that gets our attention. Less than 3%, more than 10%, meaning that the collection rate was under 90% for delinquent taxes. 3% or more in the deficit section there under number 5. Again, this slide, it should be familiar. So what is it incumbent upon the Pennsylvania Department of Education to do? So you're not just labeled or receive that label as a district. Now it's incumbent on the Department of Education to support the district. So the position of Chief Recovery Officer was created and somebody was assigned. Then this particular committee was formed as it must, according to Act 141 legislation. The original plan was drafted. Important to note that it was approved at both the local board level and at the state level in Harrisburg. That's 2022. And then the supports started flowing in the form of technical services, some of which I've referenced tonight. And in the past, we've talked about annual empowerment grant funding. Typically, that was $2 million. And then also there was a $1 million transitional loan with no interest. All right, and in that original plan, there are exit criteria listed. I've sort of checked off one. Again, this is a recap for you. The ones that it seems like the district, they've mastered these. They've accomplished these, if you will. That 4th bulleted point, it's in bold because it's a list. There's a list of criteria, some of which were referenced in slide number 2, and that would have been from the notification letter from former Secretary Noe Ortega. Okay, you've seen this one before. So they're color coded for a reason. The orange is, it's not really a red, meaning that we're not there yet. It's not really a black that we've done it. So I tried to pick a blended color, and I have a check mark slash question mark, because this is one of those ones, it's kind of arbitrary depending how you look at it. A subsequent slide, I'll break it down a little bit more, but in the absence of those supports, you know, districts receive sizable amounts of money during the COVID pandemic. That's one thing, everybody received those. But then there were special financial supports that the district received after it was assigned to financial recovery, the transitional loan I mentioned, the annual empowerment grants. So you could say, well, maybe we are close, maybe not in the absence of. Certainly those that are referenced in red, these are the ones that are problematic. The projections going out, let's say if the district were able to qualify for exit this year, that is not going to happen. I want to be very clear about that. I'm hopeful in future years, but certainly not this year. Could PFM project out for us and show that in 5 years, those 5 years immediately that follow, that we would be able to meet this, and we can't. Also, it's problematic trying to find evidence of substantial progress in the areas of academic performance, graduation rate, and attendance goals. So as you can imagine, in the amended recovery plan, we are going to hit these pretty heavily. All right, current status, again, just expanding a little bit on what I just said. In the absence of the COVID dollars, the empowerment grants, it's not likely that the district would have posted a positive fund balance for those 3 years. And remember, it's 3 consecutive years, 3 successive years. The projections, very clear, they remain problematic. The driving forces there, the factors that are impacting that, charter school interest, the tuition dollars that go with that, and then the outstanding capital repairs, and then academic growth. As I've already said, there's limited evidence to show any growth at this point. All right, you've seen this before, but let me just draw your eye to a few things. If you look at the trend, negative 4.0 million. So talking about fund balance at the end of the year, June 30th, when you've received the bills, well, it doesn't actually happen that way. We know there's journal entries, but pretty much, where are you? You budgeted however many dollars, you spent how many, are you above or below that threshold? And you can see in 2016-17, that's pretty stark, negative 4 million. And then you follow through and you see now we're in the black 22-23. But I also have the note there for you. That's when the ESSER money started coming through. The empowerment money started in the school year 2019-20. I'm sorry, 2019-20. And then you can see that. So the question is, if you go down to the bottom there, the total ESSER received, again, everybody got that, 14.1 million for Sto-Rox. But the empowerment dollars, Sto-Rox got those in the districts who were in a similar circumstance. For Sto-Rox, it was 12 million. So if you would subtract off even the 12 million, you see how it changes a little bit and there's a lot more red. Some things just to keep in mind too, though, there's a reference there for 24-25, and I want to make sure I'm very clear. This is unaudited. This, I don't want to say guess, it's more than a guess, but JMA, who provided the business office services here previously, and they are supporting us during transition, but eventually they will not be affiliated with the district, gave a quote on July 23rd and said, we think for this fiscal year, we think the district will end at about a surplus of 1.5 million. So if you would tack that onto the 12.9, then you would think, well, we're probably going to be in the $14 million range. Well, there's another caveat. With the size of this district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, there's a rule of 8%. So that unassigned general fund balance has to be shifted. And so dollars have to be assigned or restricted. And for this district, 8% of about a $39 million budget is about 3.19 million. So once the numbers are firmed up, there's going to be a shift with that. Also, just to remind you that the district has been thinking about qualification for exit. This is not supposed to be a long-term assignment. We were supposed to receive supports, have a corrective action plan, follow it with fidelity, and then the district will resume its independence. However, once the district would be exited, there would be a 5-year monitoring period. As long as things would remain stable, the district's following the plan, then the district would be independent once again. So keeping that end in mind, in February, the board approved a recommendation to move $2 million. It's not ironic, it was the same amount of the empowerment funds that were received this year from the Department of Ed, to show that we were not reliant on that to meet our needs for this fiscal year. I do not expect there to be any more empowerment dollars coming in. While you may say, oh, that's not good, it is very good. We're showing that we don't need that to meet the needs of the district. Okay, so these are the projections I hinted at, and please see the note there. This is assuming a full status quo. And what would the district look like? Again, if we were ready for exit this year, we would have to show 5 years out. And you can see there's a lot of red there. That means doing the absence of doing anything. That would be absolutely no shift, no movements. Okay, the cost drivers, again, you've seen this slide before, I believe. If you look 23, 24, 24, 25, and look at the trends there, as you can see, the district enrollment has been dropping, but when you look at the population within McKees Rocks and Stowe Township, it's actually increasing. So the students, it would seem, are going somewhere else. We have got to change that trajectory, because a lost student is a student, they take their dollars with them. And that's a huge financial impact. Another major cost driver, as I said, the charter school tuition. It's the same, I apologize, it's not another. But when you look at that, look at the trend, the portion of the district's budget that is going to charter schools. So how do we demonstrate to these families that, look, you can come to Sto-Rox and you will receive a quality education? Right now, in this case, these students are picking a different option, and we want to be able to provide evidence that they would at least receive what they're receiving elsewhere, and hopefully better, and encourage them to come back. The next slide actually has the other driver I was thinking about there a minute ago, the capital improvements. At this point, and it's really important, Hannah put a note in there, these are the known outstanding project needs. So that 8.6 million, that's here, and it's going to grow, and we have to chip away at that. And so the hope is that when we shift from that unassigned general fund balance, that minimally, we have 8.6 million in a set aside fund. It's restricted for capital needs only. Specific to academics, another area that I flagged in red, because we need evidence of growth. And you can see a lot of red. Next slide, please. Same thing with the keystones, a lot of red. All right, so I think you've seen some semblance of this slide before. So we're exercising the option to amend, and specifically the plan will be amended as needed to reflect significant changes in the district's progress and to put strategies in place to address any new challenges. And I believe we've talked about the benefit before. We want to know exactly what does this district need to do with fidelity to change its circumstances. And again, the third and fourth bulleted point, we really need to think about exit because it is on the horizon if we follow the plan with fidelity. All right, so thinking about the need to provide evidence of emerging progress. This is a celebration. These are things that we are doing well. Improved operational efficiencies and effectiveness. I could say, and I have said to the staff, I can see and I can feel the difference. It's very positive. As Sonia just reported, observing the culture and the climate in May last year is very different what she has observed thus far. But what are the measures? What are the indicators? So we have got to collect some data to show that, yes, it is different. It's more than a feeling. Number two is pretty clear. If we only receive X number of dollars, we can't spend beyond that. That's the bottom line. And that's the hard part because it involves tough decision making. Nobody wants to reduce the size of staff or not renew a contract for a service provider, but sometimes those decisions have to be made. And then also, a great idea is a great idea. However, we cannot rely on impulse. We've got to slow things down, more serious consideration. Okay, here's whatever change it is that we want to pursue, but what are the implications? And usually when you take time, a reasonable amount of time, and you put a team together who look through a different lens, such as yourselves, then you start to problem solve and you anticipate issues and you develop a plan to attack those issues to make sure that whatever it is something that's going to have the intended result, and you're not going to disrupt the stability of the larger organization during the transition. Okay, new challenges. And it's interesting for me because, having inherited a different recovery plan, and I'm not suggesting in any way that it's bad, it assumes some things. For example, thinking about contracted services. And I had this conversation with one of the board members, and I believe totally that the individual was being honest and said, well, we were told contracted services was more economical. And they can be because you're not paying for healthcare benefits, PSERS, retirement contributions. However, there can be a downside to that too. Over reliance. Then you've lost the ability to build the internal capacity. You have contractors who are performing services for multiple clients. Maybe they don't have the time and attention to give to you what you need as a district, and things slip through the cracks. The chronic administrative turnover, I don't think I need to say anything more about that. However, the impact on the classroom, when you think about the role of an instructional leader to go into classrooms, to observe, to review lesson plans, look at data from assessments and so forth, if people are coming and going and the district is in crisis, those things don't get done. Limitations of a mostly remote contracted services business office model. That is one where, COVID showed the world, I guess, that virtual is an option. I mean, we're meeting virtually today for most of us. However, when you have to email somebody and wait for a response, sometimes, that doesn't work. Maybe if we were just in maintenance mode, but when we are in rebuilding mode and correction mode, that does not work well for the district. An over-reliance on one-time non-renewable funding sources, that is a huge one. The district, because of its circumstances, qualifies for a lot of grants. that sounds great. But generally, grants, especially if they're coming from the government, have clear rules and clear guidelines. And so it's easier to qualify, but then to manage the compliance guidelines. There's been a lot of scrambling here. Something's due or something's past due. Oh my gosh, who has that? We don't know. How did they spend that? Is this invoice related to that grant? Those are challenges. You have to have the sufficient administrative capacity. I know we talked about this before. I believe our representative from Propel spoke up and said, we have a committee that looks at the grants, the opportunities, and we decide as a committee. And then we meet as a committee to follow up what's due when, to make sure the district remains, or the school system remains compliant. I believe Caroline talked about that from Northgate as well. Impact of short-term vision and consideration only. Again, looking beyond, what's the anticipated outcome? How do we get there? What are the steps that are involved? What obstacles are there that we need to draw attention to and address? And this is a new one, not for Sto-Rox, but for most districts, right? The vulnerability of the federal funding. In red there, I want to draw your attention to Title IV, BSCA, SCG funds. There were 5 positions in this district that were tied to that. And it's kind of ironic because when I started here, fall, winter of last school year, the PFM folks, Chris Selmer, they brought this to my attention, said these positions, there was more than 5, but we've got to be careful. The funding is ending, and it was supposed to end at the end of this school year. However, it has not been renewed for this school year so far. This ties into the tough decisions. Mars Home for Youth was providing therapeutic support, behavior support services. They were funded in part from this source. The money's not there. And so far they have not been renewed. That is an opportunity, an option, if an alternate funding source can be identified. Okay, so the themes, again, you've seen these before. They're meant to be generic. We want to build the internal capacity to operate efficiently and in compliance, certainly. You can go through and read those. I don't want to read them all for you. As I said, we have talked about those before. The next slide also includes more themes. So these are identified challenges that we have. We want to make sure that we address them. Okay, so now into the actual amended plan. And this is verbatim, page 5. And I want to just read this out loud because I think this is meant to be powerful and very meaningful. This amended recovery plan 2025 offers Sto-Rox leadership, actionable strategies grounded in universally accepted best practices to drive positive systemic reform. Implementing the amended recovery plan 2025 will stabilize the district financially and operationally, which will directly improve student outcomes. Sustain stability improvement across the areas of academic programs and operations, resource management, talent management, culture, climate, and safety, and administration and governance are crucial to preserving the district's K-12 model and providing a high-quality academic experience to students in Sto-Rox. If you recall from past conversations, we've had different board members who have joined us, and I had made a promise through this group, and you are my witnesses, to say that we be very, very clear. We share a common goal to keep this district intact as a K-12 system. Okay, 4 guiding principles, and PFM had really helped with the language on this one. The goal of the guiding principles, they're guiding principles in the original plan, but we would just want to make a little bit more clear. There's a vision statement here. There's a mission statement for the district, right? But this piece, this will help to bridge the gap between the district's current challenges and its commitment to its mission and vision. The amended recovery plan 2025 is founded on 4 guiding principles found on pages 4 and 5. It's so ironic. Not really. It ties into what Sonia had said in her address to the full staff. She, referenced the mission, the vision. Why are you here? What is your why? Asking everybody to check your commitment. If we say we're going to do these things, then we need to do these things. And the guiding principles. I'm not going to read these all to you, but please, if you have a minute, if you've not already read them, please read them. I think they are very, very, very important. So we have academic growth, we have financial management, we have student stability. And we also have operations. Then the plan references 5 targeted initiatives. We want things to be streamlined, but we don't want them to be too lean. We want them to be robust, but very, very focused, so it's easy to follow and makes sense to implement. Starting with the first initiative, resource management, or I'm sorry, I flipped the page. Instructional programs and operations, right? This district, other districts are in the business of education. We cannot lose sight of that. And thank you, Hannah, for staggering the colors so they don't all blend together. Again, I'm not going to read them all to you, but there's the list of 11 there. And then also the resource management. There's a list of 11 there. And some of you, will look at these and you'll say, these are no-brainers. These are things that a quality organization should be doing already. That is what we're striving for, universally accepted best practices. Talent management. Okay, and then the next one is culture, climate, and safety. Just a note, in the original plan, these were separated into different segments. I opted to combine, and I thought it made sense to combine them. And you'll see a reference to dashboards. What we envision is that these dashboards in all different areas of operations will be readily available. They'll be updated, populated with new data, and we can directly compare and measure again. How are we doing? These are our goals. These are the things we said we are committed to. Now let's measure our performance in that light. This is a new section, the next one. Administration and governance. It's up to the leadership really to drive this. I believe that wholeheartedly. And you'll see the references there. Number 5 is especially important. Establish and implement a cycle of continuous improvement. And this includes not only the administrators, but also the board of school directors and the solicitor. Okay, so accountability, sorry, Martha, is also embedded. And so these are slides that the PFM folks helped me just to drop them in directly from the document so that you can see what the framework looks like. It's a little bit different from the original document. So there are going to be conversations with people who are referenced in responsible parties section for all of these. Keep in mind, this document is 112 pages. So there's a lot of stuff there. There's appendices that provide more data, evidence, sources, and so forth. This is Appendix E, this whole section on the initiatives, the action step that supports each initiative, monitoring frequency, responsible parties, and then the evidence we'll be looking for. And a lot of these cases it will be me and Sonia. I'll be more observing Sonia's collection and her regular meetings with staff, making sure that we are implementing with fidelity. Okay, here's another sample. This is culture, climate, and safety. You see the reference to dashboard there in the first row. Automated process. Sonia's already looking at a new updated student information system. I think I shared with the committee before that our principals told us last year, I want to say maybe even January or February, they were entering the same data in multiple systems because the systems were not talking to each other. I know that the primary school last year started putting together some type of dashboard and they were populating it. But there are systems out there that can do that automatically, and we want to take advantage of that. Also, Michael has put together, Michael Lamb, a dashboard of sorts that incorporates the financial information that a business manager would report out during public board meetings. And he was able to preview that, showcase that a little bit. The board feedback at the table, this was last week, was very, very positive. And I remember the board president and Sonia saying to me that, it was really, really meaningful. It was easy to follow. Well, sending somebody a report that's 50 pages long and assuming they read it and saying, do you have any questions? That's not really a meaningful experience. So we want to try to break it down and to show, what are the most key pertinent information pieces in this moment. And it would be incumbent then on the administrators to share through Sonia the updates, and they'll be reported out in board committee meetings and then the larger public agenda review sessions and voting session. Okay, so if all these things are done with fidelity, PFM took some time and tried to project out what would be potentially the financial impact. And we know that some of this is subjective and it's not absolute, but you look at that, there's certainly less red. Nonetheless, there is red. And so we have to think about that. And I talked to Scott, the new business manager, this morning about these, and I was showing him, and I said, well, you know, we really need to think about opportunities where we can save money without creating instability and chaos. Okay, so some things are intact, most things are intact. Re-emphasized, and there are some new things in the amended document. I want to make clear these bulleted items. The original financial recovery plan 2022 remains intact. The amended plan 2025 is a supplement that was intentionally designed to focus on specific aspects of current status, some the same and some different as compared to the 2022 plan. PD's authority has not changed, and I gave you the note there if you want to look into the amended document, proof that it's still in there. Powers and duties of the recovery officer position: prescribed, prioritized, and targeted spending of surplus dollars. So when you think about district stability, let's say there is a surplus. Well, what is the guidance on that? And as we know from the original plan, nothing has changed. In the new plan, let me assure you that we want to try to be mindful of the tax increase, the tax burden on the residents. So we have to think about that. We also have to think about the capital repairs, and we want to think about collective bargaining agreements. Annual consideration of a real estate tax increase. The original plan was page 57. The new one is 45. And I said, this is the toughest one of all. This is a poor community. And then to ask people to give more, it's hard. That's a really, really hard request, and especially of people who are managing the district and they're voted into their positions. Their constituents give them their positions, and then they have to tax them even more heavily. That is really tough. Using staff creatively to meet organizational needs and to manage spending. I talked this evening about Michael helping to fill in as we transition to a business manager. The role of the PIMS coordinator being extended to pick up HR, Martha taking the lead on HR. Those things are embedded in this plan, more clear about cross-training, being prepared in a moment for somebody to cover a role, to make sure deadline is met versus things lapsing, falling behind and further behind and so forth. And of course, there's new updated positions, titles, and strategies. I saw in the original plan, there's a reference to an assistant superintendent. I don't anticipate an assistant superintendent being hired in this small district that has financial challenges. Okay, exit criteria, when I go back, remember the coding, this orangish yellow, I don't know. It's kind of like maybe we're getting there, we're close. And red are those are the definite challenges. And certainly there's a list of criteria here, additional criterion that I did not include because I feel confident that we've mastered, we've succeeded in those areas, we've sustained efforts. It's not just a sporadic, well, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It's embedded, it's systemic. So we look at now, the district is making progress, the positive fund balance of at least 5%. Well, we didn't really have that before, but now there's a little bit of a cushion in there. If you remember from that initial notification letter from back to 2021, there was a reference to falling under a 3% threshold. So that was triggered as part of the Department of Ed's early warning system. So this gives a little bit of a cushion. We want to be above that. The 5-year projection, as we said, that's going to be the tough one, and the analytics and all of that review will be completed by PFM, and we appreciate that. And then trying to generate, and I'm talking about authentic evidence. I'm not talking about contriving things, making it look good. We want to be convinced that we are making strides in those areas of academic performance, graduation rate, and career readiness goals. And just a note there for the 5% in the first bulleted item, that's about $2 million. So you want to try not to dip under that. And the recovery plan, the timeline, I already had that embedded in our agenda, so I will not go over that again. We are immersed in the 30-day public review, and we hope that the board will adopt the amended plan September 25th. I know it's a lot. I know I went quickly through things that I felt you had been exposed to before. Please, now is the time, or even later, if you want to email me directly, any feedback, comments, remarks, please do that. And I will leave the floor open now. Anybody want to make any remarks, suggestions, recommendations? Any just honest reflections? Doable? What do you anticipate the challenges to be? Leanna Lawson, please. Thank you for raising your hand too.
So it's a lot, but I would expect a lot. But I think keeping it in front of everyone all the time, the individual kind of benchmarks or, items that are outlined are doable. It's a lot. But I don't think there's any other way to go about it, because there are lots of areas to cover.
But let me just again reinforce my sense. This team is the team. I keep calling them the dream team. These are talent. I mean, these are not people that, okay, I have to, I said the other day, I've never worked with such a strong and talented team. They are it. And I feel very confident they can do this. Obviously, the support will continue, but I believe they have the capacity. I mean, just even seeing the impact, I'm going to toot Sonia's horn here a little bit more. I'm so impressed with her. Sitting there on August 18th, the staff welcome back. She was on fire. And it's just amazing because it's so pure and it's so authentic. And to hear her talk about her initial career of being a juvenile probation officer and the things that she learned. I mean, my gosh, that is so authentic. How many people can stand up and say that? She's putting in the time. I keep cautioning her, you've got to slow your pace. We need you to last. But she's given heart and soul, and the other people as well, who are new to the team, and the whole team is new. We know that. I don't think anybody has more than 2 years experience at the district level where they're starting their second year. They have the energy, they have the passion, they have the talent. So thank you, Leanna, for your feedback. Melissa, please go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Two things I was just going to say. Number one, I think you've just put the transparency out there. It's really very transparent. It's just, there it is. You always say, hey, these are public meetings, X, Y, and Z. Anybody's welcome. I think you've really communicated transparency. And that's important. And the other thing I was just going to comment, and I think you started right when I logged in. I saw just the great things on social media. I know I'm the elephant in the room, and that's okay. But, we're all in to do what's best for kids and their families. But really, I saw the really great things on social media back to school. And that was just, nice to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody else? Maybe if I could ask Hannah, are you still with us? Hannah, you've been with the district for a long time as a PFM analyst. Anything that you've noticed that's new, different, gives us hope?
I am here. Sorry, I'm a little bit less familiar with this platform. I have been working with Sto-Rox for about 3 years now with through the department's technical support program for recovery school districts. And yeah, I just want to echo you, Nancy. I do feel that that shift in leadership. I think that there are a lot of people sitting around the table that want this change, will work for this change, and we're excited to work with you all to make that happen.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Maria, from the perspective of teachers, any concerns that you have?
No, I mean, it's a contract year, so we're going to begin negotiations in January. So everybody is a little, apprehensive because you never know. So that's our biggest concern right now. Contract, and where we go from here.
Yeah, that's really important to keep in mind. And, certainly the district wants staff to be paid reasonably well, but they have to be mindful of affordability. And that was one of the remarks I made when I presented the themes, not this presentation, but the themes of the amended recovery plan to the staff on the 18th. And, the district had to make a decision when the Title IV, those special dollars were not released. Okay, how are we going to balance this out? And I, basically said it could have been somebody in this room whose position would have been cut, but the district made the decision to go with an outside service provider. There's a hit there. The families are going to feel it, the kids are going to feel it. Of course, teachers will feel it if the kids don't have that level of support. But those are the tough decisions that have to be made. And again, I'm going to applaud Sonia. When she first came in here and we had some of those prelim conversations talking about, how are we going to manage some of these things? And she made it very clear that she was not going to support notifying a district staff person that you're not being renewed this late in the year. It's just not fair. And she wasn't going to do that. So I applaud her for that as well. Stephen, go ahead.
Well, Dr. Rabel, I want to first commend you on diving so wholeheartedly into this process of writing the amended plan. I want to echo two things. I think that this plan really focuses on developing systems and procedures, and that muscle that the district will develop throughout execution of the plan will repay in so many dividends, I think, in the future, and standardizing so many of these pieces that I think will just improve outcomes for students. Secondly, the next part of the plan of implementing, tracking, and collecting, monitoring through evidence is one of the next steps that I think will also validate and show the progress that the district has made throughout the last few years. We want to kind of continue building on that momentum and capture that evidence and show the larger Pennsylvania community where Sto-Rox is really going through that work. So those are the two things. Yeah.
It's exciting. I'm just going to give some more commentary here. Working on site most days every week. I'm not here generally 5 days, but usually 3 to 4. And being embedded in the business office area, superintendent is in and out, various teachers, staff are in and out, and just hearing the lingo. So working with PFM, putting the plan together, some of the terms, just wondering what's the level of familiarity with some of these best practices and the associated terminology, how much education is going to be needed during the launch so that we make sure everybody understands. And, first I was a little bit nervous because when you're in crisis mode, you can't even think about best practice, right? You're trying to stay afloat, get through the day. And some of these things you mean to get to them, the intentions are good, but because you're always in crisis, you never get there. But I will tell you, this team, I've heard the terminology, I've heard the concepts, and the expectations for a lot of these universally accepted best practices are already here embedded in this new leadership team. So that gives me tremendous hope.
And I just want to echo what Stephen and Nancy has said. When I came to the district and I read the prior plan, and I'm almost through the current one, I tried to get through it all. The things that are being asked of us, I'm going to be honest with everyone, are just best practices and aren't difficult to do. I'll be perfectly honest. So in reading some things that weren't in place, it's like, oh, well, that's an easy fix, or that's low hanging fruit. And I think staff that are on this call, no, there's already procedures and processes either in place or in development where, I've said, we need a clear pathway for multiple things before we just go and just bless it and do it. Because what we don't want to repeat behavior or practices that are not effective or lean towards our success.
Yep, and having the administrative stability is really going to be key. You know, the stops and starts, that certainly slows down progress. Good intentions, they never reach fruition because we're always pivoting. So absolutely. And it is so reassuring to hear her say, these are best practices. In other words, she would have done it that way anyway. That is very reassuring. Anybody else? We've reached the 5 o'clock mark. I'm going to give an opportunity for any final comments. Okay, so our next meeting, virtual and or in person is your option. That will be, it's listed on the agenda, Wednesday, September 24th at 4 o'clock. In the meantime, if anything kind of catches your attention, if you continue to read the document or just even to reflect on our conversation, please do not hesitate to email me directly. I appreciate your time and your attention. Everybody have a good day. Thank you.